Hello everyone. Today we will discuss cranial nerves. Cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves are the 12 pairs. The cranial nerves are the 12 pairs. So the functionally three types. Sensory, motor, mixed. First one sensory neurons, second one motor neurons, third one mixed neurons. So totally 12 pairs of the neurons: olfactory nerve, optic nerve, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, trigeminal nerve, Abducens nerve, facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve. Next one spinal accessory nerve. 12th one hypoglossal nerve. First one olfactory nerve. First one olfactory nerve. So the olfactory nerve, so it is a sensory nerve. It is a functioning as a sensory nerve. It is a sensory nerve. Sensory nerve means, so these are impulse sending from the sensory organ to central nervous system. Sensory organs to central nervous system. So these are the olfactory nerve. It is starting from the olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. It is arising from olfactory nerve. It is arising from olfactory epithelium. Olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. Olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. So it is arising from the nasal chamber. The olfactory epithelium of the nasal chamber. It is arising from the olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. So it is arising from the olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. Next one, it extends from the temporal lobe of the, so they are extend from the temporal lobe of the brain. Temporal lobe of the brain. Via olfactory bulb. So these are the olfactory epithelium. So the olfactory epithelium is starting from the olfactory epithelium of nasal chamber. It is ending from the temporal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. Temporal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. Via olfactory bulb. So these are the olfactory nerve. So they are starting from the olfactory epithelium of the nasal chamber, ending from the temporal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. Next one, optic nerve. Second one, optic nerve. Second one, optic nerve. So the optic nerve also is called sensory nerve. So these optic nerve arising from the retina of the eye. So they are arising from the retina of the eye. It is arising from the retina of the eye. Retina of the eyeball. So it is arising from the retina of the eye. Next one, it is ending from visual cortex of occipital lobe. occipital lobe. So it is ending from the visual cortex of occipital lobe, visual cortex of occipital lobe. So these are arising from the retina of the eyeball. It is arising from the retina of the eyeball. It is arising from the retina of the eyeball. It is ending from the occipital lobe. So this lobe is called as occipital lobe. So this occipital lobe contain a visual cortex. So these are ending from the visual cortex of occipital lobe. Visual cortex of occipital lobe. So in these two neurons, the two neurons are the cross, the two optic nerves, the two optic nerves cross each other. The two optic nerves cross each other. The two optic nerves are cross each other from the diencephalon. So the infundibulum of the front of the infundibulum, the roof of the diencephalon is crossing each other in the floor of the diencephalon. Roof of the diencephalon, front of the infundibulum. Front of the infundibulum. Front of the infundibulum. So the formation of the optic chiasma. The formation of optic chiasma. Optic chiasma. So the formation of optic chiasma. So the two neurons are the crossing each other. The two neurons are the crossing each other from the floor of the diencephalon, front of the infundibulum. So the formation of the optic chiasma. The formation of optic chiasma. The formation of optic chiasma. So they are the optic nerve. So the optic nerve arising from the retina of the eye, ending from the visual cortex of the occipital lobe. Visual cortex of the occipital lobe. Next one, oculomotor nerve. Third one, oculomotor nerve. Third one, oculomotor nerve. Third one, oculomotor nerve. So this oculomotor nerve is a motor nerve. So these are the motor nerve. So these are the motor nerve. So these are the motor nerve. So these motor nerves are starting from the central nervous. They are starting from the central nervous system, ending from the sensory organs. So they are starting from the central nervous system, ending from the sensory organs. So this oculomotor nerve, so it is arising from midbrain. It is arising from the midbrain. It is arising from the midbrain. So it is ending from inferior oblique muscles, Next one, superior, inferior, and medial rectus muscles, and ciliary and iris muscles of eyeball. So these are the oculomotor nerve. So the oculomotor nerve is the motor nerve, oculomotor. So their name is the motor. So this nerve is the motor nerve. So this motor nerve is originating from the midbrain. So they are originating from the midbrain. So this ending from this. So these are starting from the midbrain and ending from the inferior oblique muscles. Inferior oblique muscles, superior, inferior, medial rectus muscles and ciliary and iris muscles of the eyeball. Inferior oblique muscle, superior, middle, inferior rectus muscle, ciliary and iris muscle. So they are the ending place. Next one, fourth one, trochlear nerve. Fourth one, trochlear nerve. Fourth one, trochlear nerve. Fourth one, trochlear nerve. So this trochlear nerve also motor nerve. So this nerve also motor nerve. So these are the motor nerve. Trochlear nerve also a motor nerve. So this is also a motor nerve. So in this nerve, they are starting from the midbrain. It is arising from midbrain. It is arising from midbrain. It is arising from midbrain. So it is ending from so they are the superior oblique muscle. So they are ending from the inferior muscle. So these are the superior oblique ending from superior oblique muscle. Superior oblique muscles. Superior oblique muscle. Superior oblique muscle. So they are the trochlear nerve. So they are the trochlear nerve. So the trochlear nerve. So they are the motor nerve. So they are starting from the midbrain. So they are ending from the superior oblique muscle. Superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. Superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. So they are the fourth nerve, trochlear nerve. Fourth one, trochlear nerve. Fifth one, trigeminal. Fifth one, trigeminal nerve. Next one, fifth nerve. So the fifth nerve is trigeminal nerve. Fifth one, trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve. So this trigeminal nerve is the mixed nerve. So these are the mixed nerve. So this trigeminal nerve is mixed nerve. Mixed nerve means, so they are the two functions, sensory function and motor function. These are the mixed means the two functions, sensory function and motor function, sensory nerve and motor function. So this trigeminal nerve is associated with, they are the starting or ending. See, these are associated with. These are associated with pons varolii and join the Gasserian ganglion. So they are associated with the pons varolii and join the Gasserian ganglion. So pons varolii and Gasserian ganglion. So it contains three nerves. It contains three nerves. One is the ophthalmic nerve. Ophthalmic nerve, maxillary nerve, third one mandibular nerve. Ophthalmic nerve, maxillary nerve and mandibular nerve. So the ophthalmic nerve is the sensory nerve. So, they are the sensory nerve. So, the maxillary nerve also sensory nerve. So, the mandibular nerve is motor nerve. Mandibular nerve is motor nerve. Ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular nerves. So, they are the three nerves. So, the name is called as trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve means they contain a three neurons: ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular neuron. Ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular neurons. So, they are the sensory functions. They are the two functions. One is the sensory function, another one is the motor function. First one, sensory function. Sensory function. It is the sensory neurons impulse receiving from sensory neurons impulse receiving from impulse receiving from the conjunctiva, lacrimal gland, eyelids, lacrimal glands, eyelids. Next one, palate, teeth, nose, lips, cheeks. So, they are the sensory impulse. The sensory impulse receiving from the conjunctiva and the lacrimal glands. Lacrimal gland means, so they are the eyeball presenting on the lacrimal glands. So, tears presenting on the lacrimal glands. Next one, eyelids. So, they are the eyelids. Next one, palate. So, they are the palate, lips, teeth, nose, cheeks. So, they are the sensory impulse receiving from the lacrimal glands, eyelids, palate, teeth, nose, lips and cheek. So, they are receiving from the sensory impulse, sending from the pons varoli, brain of the pons varoli. So, they are the sensory area. Next one, motor function. So, in this impulse sending, so the impulse sending from the pons varoli to, so the impulse they are starting from the pons varoli. It's starting from the pons varoli and ending from the pons varoli to, is starting from the pons varoli to impulse sending from lacrimal glands. Next one, muscles of lower jaw, Next one, maxillary gland and mandibular glands. So, these are the motor functions. So, the trigeminal nerve is a mixed nerve. So, this mixed nerve impulse, sensory function and motor function. First one, sensory function. The sensory functions, these neurons starting from the impulse, starting from the eyelids, teeth, nose, lips, cheeks, palate to the sending from the pons varoli. So, they are the sensory function. Next one, motor function means, so they are the impulse sending from the central nervous system to sensory organs. So, this pons varoli to impulse sending from the lacrimal glands and muscles of lower jaw. Next one, maxillary glands and mandibular glands, salivary glands, maxillary gland and mandibular glands. So, they are the sensory function and motor function. So, they are the trigeminal nerve. Next one, abducens nerve. Next one, abducens nerve. Sixth one, abducens nerve. Abducens nerve. Abducens nerve. So this abducens nerve is a motor nerve. So this nerve is a motor nerve. Abducens nerve is motor nerve. So in this motor nerve, they are starting from the pons varolii. It is starting from pons varolii. It is starting from pons varolii. It is starting from the pons varolii. So this ending from the and ending. So they are the lateral rectus muscle. Ending from the lateral. Ending the lateral rectus muscle. Rectus muscles of eyeball. Lateral rectus muscles of eyeball. So these are the motor neurons. So these are abducens nerve. So these abducens nerve, so they are the motor neuron. Motor neuron means, so they are starting from the central nervous system, ending from the sensory organs. Starting from the central nervous system, ending from the sensory organs. So these neuron starting from the pons varolii. So the abducens nerve, so they are the abducens nerve starting from the pons varolii, ending from the lateral rectus muscle. Lateral rectus muscle of eyeball. Lateral rectus muscle of eyeball. So these are the abducens nerve. So these are the abducens nerve. Next one, seventh one, facial nerve. Seventh one, facial nerve.